Hi, I'm Donna Rosenberg from Jameson Legal, and I'm Director and Head of In-house for UK and Europe. Today we're doing another video in the series of videos of the rise of the modern GC. These videos are aimed at talking to a variety of lawyers who have achieved consulting, management, strategic and/or executive positions. We're talking topics such as careers in-house, technology and changes in the legal sector. I'm joined today by Sharon Evans, General Counsel at TotallyMoney. Sharon has worked with TotallyMoney for 6 years, starting part-time as a consultant and then joining as GC just over 4 years ago. She has built the legal and compliance function from 1.5 to 5 members and has supported the business through a major investment round, introduced GDPR, expanded services and increased complexity. Prior to TotallyMoney, Sharon, worked both in legal and commercial roles at some major brands, The Guardian, Sony Music and Expedia. She made the move in-house as a junior lawyer around 2PQE. Hi Sharon, how are you?
Hi, very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
No worries.
So it might be good to start just about the topic of the rise of the modern GC and what appealed for you to do the virtual interviews.
Yeah, well, I think when we first spoke about this, you said that it might be quite helpful to people thinking about moving in-house and to hear from people already with established careers in-house. And I've sort of been in-house for so long now that I've forgotten that it might be daunting to people thinking about making the move. So it was really just to help people when they're trying to weigh up whether to make the leap.
That's perfect. And again, thanks very much for joining us. So when we talk about how important it is to have a future roadmap when considering a career in-house, what would you say about this?
Well, I guess I'm taking from that roadmap as in having a sort of plan as to what you're going to do when you get that that first role in-house. And I don't think personally it's that important to have a plan. I mean, if I ever had one, I'm certainly stopped following it at some point. I think you do have to consider that things will be a little bit different in-house. So depending on the size of organisation you join, you may not be able to rise through the ranks in the same way that you might do in private practice. So you probably have to be prepared, plan for to an extent, the idea that you might need to move every couple of years in order to move up and get more experience. But yeah, in terms of having like a fixed plan, I suppose I went into in-house thinking I really wanted to work for really cool brands with products that I personally loved and knew. And for me, that was my plan really, just to work for really exciting companies. And I think I saw that as being a bit of a proxy for then a really great legal job. And the reason that I don't have a plan, or certainly it's gone out of the window at some point, is that I've learnt through trial and error actually what does suit me. And, you know, being interested in the business and the product is only half of the job. You do have to be interested. But the other bit is about what suits you and whether you want to be in what sort of organisation and what sort of structure you want around you. And for me, I found that I really like smaller businesses. I like being able to get into the weeds of what's going on, being really close to strategy, being able to build processes, build teams. So for me, TotallyMoney has actually been the best experience so far of my career, because I've been able to be in a business where I'm both interested in the product, but also the legal team and I suppose the sort of position that the legal team occupies within the wider business has been much more beneficial to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How important is it, do you think, that legal is to the development and growth of a company?
Well, I mean, I've got a vested interest in saying incredibly important. But no, I think it is. I mean, again, I'm probably going to talk about this from the point of view as of a early stage business or a scaling business, which is what I'm in now. And I think it's incredibly important because you sort of wear two hats basically when you're a lawyer in that sort of business, or I feel I do. On the one hand, you've got the business that's trying to get going. So you've got all the stuff that the business wants to do, the contracts it wants to sign, the marketing it wants to release, the things that it wants to do in order to grow. And half of my job is giving the business kind of red lines around that, and creating a sort of safe place to play so that I'm not stepping on their toes too much. I'm not stifling that growth, but I've given them some red lines, basically, some guardrails within which they should be able to then go and do what they need to do. And I don't need to get involved in every tiny thing. I can pick the things that are really key, where I can really add value. So that's part of it. And then the other half of it is having one eye on the foundations. I mean, after all, we're all, as in-house lawyers, guardians of the business. We're there to protect the business. So the other half of it is getting the foundations right, making sure that even if nobody else is talking about these things, that you're the person in the room that's thinking about what's coming down the line. So when it comes to funding or, due diligence exercises, what sort of things are going to come up, making sure that you have value in terms of IP ownership and also compliance. So GDPR stuff, regulatory compliance, ESG, corporate governance, all of these sort of topics and sort of structural systems and processes that you have to make sure that they're in place so that you've got the right foundations then to scale. And that's quite an interesting one, because that's a whole area of your job that your CEO or whoever you report into just might not realize you need to work on. But yeah, so I think it's incredibly important, both in terms of what the business knows you're doing, being a business partner, helping them through this deal, and also the stuff you're doing in the background to really protect the future value.
That's great. Really good information. So what challenges have you found with respect to flexible and or remote working? What did you find that you had any challenges when the pandemic happened, and so you can sort of reflect back on those within TotallyMoney, but also looking at how that flexible and remote working may shape legal teams in the future?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, personally, like everybody else with children, I had a shocker for a portion of the pandemic trying to do my job and homeschool at the same time. But there was nothing that wasn't TotallyMoney's fault. As far as work goes, we had a pretty smooth as it could be transition to remote working, because I work for a tech company. So as you would expect, the tech was set up. We had collaboration tools. We've really, we already actually relied quite heavily on things like Slack and video calls. They weren't alien to us as a business. So, so in terms of being able to work remotely, at TotallyMoney, we've had a fairly decent experience there. The one thing that I'd say we were also very lucky on is that we had done so much work in the legal team to make sure that we were really woven into the business processes. So we were already using things like Jira tickets in order to work with our product team and make sure that the legal and compliance support was being done at the right time in their processes, and also that they could see the progress we'd made on our side, because we were all working in the same systems. So I think that having done all of that groundwork when we were working pre-pandemic actually lent itself very well then to finding ourselves remotely, because we already were slotted into the business. We weren't waiting for people to come and give us instructions to work on things. We were just already up and running. So I think that that's a big thing that we need to continue with and build on even more, and look for operational opportunities really to sort of further weave ourselves into the business, because then it doesn't matter where you are, you can work easily. But the main challenge that I really see for in-house teams is for junior lawyers, honestly, because I think that senior lawyers in-house now have to be incredibly conscious about involving the junior lawyers in whatever they're doing. I think when you're still learning, well, we're all still learning, but when you're more junior and learning, you rely so much on those ad hoc interactions and, you know, offering to go along to a meeting that you've just seen is about to start, or offering to pick up a piece of work, or just you find your way into sort of different deals and different projects by just being there and hearing what's going on and learning from the more senior lawyers and the business people that are working on the deals. So we now need to really create those opportunities for our junior colleagues, I think, to get involved in things. Because otherwise, I think, sadly, if you don't do that, then the junior lawyers will only be working on work that you've kind of purposely delegated to them. And I think that would be a shame.
Yes, so in some respect, it could hinder some of those other aspects that they would get from on-the-job training, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Sharon. So what advice can you offer a lawyer who is contemplating a career in-house, adding value at the highest level?
Well, I would say the first thing, if you're coming from private practice, is to really think about your comms style, because when you get into an in-house role, the thing that it was news to me anyway, when I came in-house, I sort of thought that the more senior the person was in the business, the more information they would want about whatever it was you were talking to them about. And the opposite is true. So you have to learn to condense your advice and really get to the point. And also don't take it personally that non-lawyers do not really want to hear all your reasoning behind everything. So you definitely need to escape from that formal style of communicating advice where you can recite what you've looked at, the pros and cons of things, and then maybe summarize with, you know, a conclusion that might be, again, sitting on the fence. So that's not as useful in-house. It has its place, and legal advice and opinions have their place. But generally speaking, people in my sort of business want a much more informal set of communications, possibly not always over email either. You have to get used to sort of giving advice verbally and over maybe Slack and in things like Jira tickets. So you definitely have to adapt your comms style, and you do need to give opinions. It is called advice for a reason, and in-house, people don't just want to hear the pros and cons of everything. They do want you to stand behind a particular course of action and say what you think is the right way to go, which is quite uncomfortable for some people, and certainly when you first come in-house, but you do need to get on board with that. And I think the other thing is that you really need to develop this this comfort zone that we talked a little bit about before. So you need to align yourself with the risk appetite of the business and get used to knowing when to speak up and which things to really sort of place the emphasis on as far as your business colleagues are concerned, because you can't be the person that sort of like runs at every small thing and then expect people in the business to sort of really take notice of you when there's something that really does need your attention and really, you know, could place the business at risk. So it doesn't help to articulate every concern that you have. You probably have to just sort of develop that sixth sense of when to hold back and sort of like when to make your move in terms of giving advice.
I can imagine.
I think those are the main things. Sorry.
No, sorry, that was my fault. I can imagine that the transition itself, just from private practice in-house, just getting used to the environment and how it operates can be, you know, the challenge in itself.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that in private practice, you give advice and then sometimes it's just gone and you don't see it again. Whereas in-house, I mean, you really have to learn how to follow up on that and implement it, and to give advice that's practical and actionable. You know, I fell into that trap so many times in-house where you know, you get used to, as a lawyer, saying things like, we should bear in mind, or we should consider this. And then somebody says, but what do you mean? Like,
yeah.
How are you gonna make sure that we bear that in mind? And then you have to think about, well, what do I mean? Do I mean that everybody has to be trained, or people have to follow a particular process? You really do need to think about the consequences of just making these statements about things that people should be doing. It's down to you. Like, how are you going to make them do it? So yeah, there's lots of different skill sets, but it's all fun.
So we talked about the pandemic before, and changes in the legal sector, and remote working has definitely been one. But how do you see the legal profession changing itself, and what impact may these changes have in the future?
Well, I really hope that the profession is going to become, a proper reflection of the businesses that we serve and society. It's very lacking in diversity. So I really hope that many of the really great initiatives that are going on at the moment in the profession sort of take hold, and that we start to see a more diverse profession is my number one hope. Because I've been doing this for sort of nearly 20 years, and I'd say that whilst the profession has changed a little bit, for example, in-house careers were not regarded as the number one careers when I was coming into the profession, whereas now it's much easier to move between private practice, in-house, backwards and forwards if you want to, and those in-house roles are seen as highly kind of attractive roles for many reasons, and doing fantastic work in-house. But that wasn't always the case. But yeah, sadly, in terms of diversity, I would say that I haven't seen an enormous amount of change during my career. And I really hope that, whether it's through, needing to have quotas and positive discrimination, whatever it's needed, that we start to see better diversity across the board.
That's great. Thanks, Sharon. So this was actually the last video in the series of videos of the Rise of the Modern GC, and we've now done, this will be the 12th video over a period of 12 weeks, which has been fantastic. And having you participate along with a lot of other different characters has been such a highlight, and it's been really great to work with everybody. So I just wanted to take the opportunity now to say thanks very much to all those who have participated. It's been, time you've taken out of your day to do this, and it's very much appreciated. If anybody has any questions for Sharon or myself, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do that at donna.rosenberg@jamesonlegal.com. And I'll just take the opportunity now to just give a little bit more information about Jameson Legal. We're an international legal and compliance recruitment company. We have 23 consultants who recruit internationally, and offices in London, Abu Dhabi, Hong Kong and Singapore. Thanks again, Sharon. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Well done, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you.